called to be you. There are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are differences of ministries, but the same Lord. And there are diversities of activities, but it is the same God who works all in all. 1 Corinthians 12, verses 4 through 6. There's been a disturbing trend in recent years to silence dissent on university campuses. Students demand safe spaces where they can be sheltered from or recuperate from being triggered by ideas that run contrary to their preferred way of thinking. Sometimes the hostility towards dissent even spills over into physical violence and riots. Past 15 years, it's been more so violence than not violence, at least in the United States, if you wanted to get serious. It's eerily reminiscent of the world that Orwell anticipated in the novel 1984. Which for me was life-changing when I read it in high school, but that's a side story. Where the government regulates and rewrites language to maintain conformity of thought. But over that same time period, the internet's done it to itself. In my opinion, it's sad and horrifying, but that's just one man's opinion. This is a disturbing trend because coerced conformity of thought is a signature characteristic of authoritarian regimes. Pausing for dramatic effect. In order to maintain their grip on power, totalitarians have generally disallowed differences of opinion. Christians should be especially alert to such trends as the world Koreans toward the moment when all the world marvels and follows the beast. Again, largely we're doing it to ourselves as a society. Again, from a U.S. perspective, the internet is censoring its own speech, yada, yada, yada. And there's a desire for authoritarianism from a generation that basically had everything done for them. Unfortunately, that's my generation. Sad to say, but that's the way things have somewhat played out. And I believe it's largely because they have no real world experience. All they know is things having been taken care of for them, and they don't know how to function without that. It's kind of like the government being the daddy replacement for single moms. But there is another place where Christians should be vigilant against groupthink. But there's always been a groupthink element within religion as well, which is a problem. You live your life as a Christian according to the Bible. We often tend to see certain personality traits as universally desirable, and we judge the quality of other spirituality by whether or not they seem to have certain gifts and abilities. The ideal Christian man or woman is easy to imagine. Heavily influenced by the growing preferences for extroversion that emerged in the West at the beginning of the 20th century. We often expect our fellow believers to follow in the footsteps of Dale Carnegie. We believe a good Christian should be a gifted leader and a skilled prayer warrior. He or she must be comfortable striking up conversations with strangers, be willing to open his or her home for Bible study, must be good with children, must be willing to transparently share a personal testimony at the drop of a hat, and so on. Personally, I meet none of those qualities. So I'm in big trouble according to that score. But I have long hair, so that puts me at odds with a lot of people anyway, in or out of the church. But I digress. This is not the picture of the church presented in the Bible, however. Far from presenting uniformity of thought and action as the ideal for the church. Scripture underlines how, while we all worship one God and are influenced by one Spirit, we still retain our individuality. And that's a concept found in the biblical declination of marriage as well. Two become one, yes, but they do not lose their individuality, either for the man or the woman. God does not expect us to mimic famous Christians when we use our gifts. He does not call us into his work because we are like everybody else. He uses us in the work because we are not like everybody else. You are called by God, in other words, to be you.